everyone. My name is Beverly Allen. I am an attorney in Tacoma, Washington. I've been practicing for 10 years. I also was most recently a judge advocate with the Washington Army National Guard, rank of captain, and I served as a legal assistance attorney at various points in my military practice. So today, I would like to talk with you about ex parte procedures as they are currently in effect in Pierce County. So the date of this recording is October 21st, 2021. Ex parte procedures can and do change. And so you may want to familiarize yourself with the Pierce County website to access the law library or to call the clerk if you have questions about various aspects. We also have a family law facilitator if it's a family law issue in Pierce County that you can get an appointment with and go over requirements. But I am informed by my friends with the law library that members of the public do have questions about how to access ex parte proceedings and what's needed to set an emergency hearing. So I'll be speaking about that as it exists currently and as it applies to family law. All right, so first, you have to know whether you have an emergency. And this is often the sticking point for many people. Many people are concerned with an issue. They don't want it to drag out 3 or 4 weeks, but they don't know if it's an emergency. So the litigant has a few options at that point. So first option is to convince the court that it is an emergency. So if, for example, somebody is about to be homeless, I would consider that an emergency. And if somebody is at risk of violence or neglect, or perhaps the other parent is going to take the child out of the state against the other parent's wishes, that could also be an emergency, but it really varies case by case. If it's not an emergency, ex parte is still available for some other types of actions, which would be perhaps doing a special set to have court on a different day, or to do a motion to exceed caps. Now, caps are the reason why you have to wait several weeks to get a hearing. Caps are the court has set, they can only hear so many cases per day. But if it is urgent enough, the court will exceed caps. And again, this is based on the court's discretion to allow your hearing to take place sooner than you would normally have to wait. But this would be a situation where it's urgent, but it's not an emergency. So try to assess whether or not your case is urgent or whether it's a true emergency before you approach ex parte. Also, if there is an attorney on the other end of the case, the other attorney might work with you to perhaps exceed those caps or to do something called shortening time. Probably if you're going to be shortening time, you will have to exceed caps, because usually if you're trying to get into court with less than 2 weeks notice, which is the requirement for commissioner motions in Pierce County, chances are everything in that 2-week period is already full. So you'll probably have to do both if you're trying to shorten time. But it's either exceeding caps, shortening time, or both. And that is the request for getting into court when it's urgent, but it's not a true emergency. Nobody's going to be hurt. Nobody's going to be homeless. Nobody's going to be, flown across the country unless the court acts right now. So getting back to the emergency, what's the first thing you have to do? Well, the first thing you have to do is give 24 hours notice in most cases. There are exceptions if you can convince the court that the other person is likely to react violently to being notified that you are seeking ex parte relief. So how do you give notice? You can give notice with a text message. You can give notice with an email, are the most common ways. I would imagine you can give notice via some messenger app like Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. But if you're going to go that route, I would definitely screenshot your notice and be prepared to file that with the court as proof. You should elect the best way to notify somebody of the hearing. So if they never check their email, or if there's an inbox that they often don't check, I wouldn't actually go there as your first resort. I would do text because most people are going to be checking their text. But if somebody uses their email all the time, or if that's how you normally communicate, then by all means use email. But it's 24 hours notice. So that's the first step. Once you've done that, you can then contact, well, let me back up. Once you've done that, you should file your motion. So in courts.wa.gov/forms, there will be a list of forms. There are different emergency motions for different types of family law cases. Find where you're at. Is this a divorce? Is this a parentage action? What provision of the law are you in? And then in that section, find the motion for ex parte or emergency relief. Fill that out, sign it, file it, serve the other person. And for emergency orders, email is probably going to be sufficient for that initial one. If you can personally serve that, even better. But make sure that you have that motion done and make sure that you're supporting that motion with why it's an emergency. Do you have medical records? Do you have police reports? What can you show the court that this is a true emergency? Once you've taken care of that step, now's the time to inform the court. How you do that is by email. So SUPCSD, which stands for Superior Court Commissioner Services Department, at piercecountywa.gov is the main email for the Commissioner Services Department. The Commissioner Services Department will then work with you to determine what date the court is available. When I'm doing this, I inform the Commissioner Services Department of what date I've already notified that person that I would like the court that's at least 24 hours out, and I request that. But I always know that slot may be full. They might put me at a different slot. I might request 10, they might request 11, or they might say that it's at 11. Here's the thing. If you have the other side CC'd on that correspondence, then the court also will know that you're including them in this discussion. So as they're sending you the link to the Zoom hearing, they'll also be sending the opposing party that link. Commissioner Services also will require a proposed order. It is best to have that in a Word format. And when you are on courts.wa.gov, you will also see orders, ex parte orders. They will set the next date and they will cover various grounds for relief, such as who the child is going to be with, whether or not support is ordered, etc. So fill out that proposed order while you are requesting that setup date. You will also need to provide the court with the full names and dates of birth for all the adults in either person's home. This is so the court can run what's called a JIS search. JIS stands for Judicial Information System and will give the court information about crimes and arrests. I believe that domestic violence is also covered under JIS searches. So the court will know coming into the hearing who these adults are that are around these children or this child. Once you've done all that, the next step is to wait for the Zoom link from the court. Keep in mind that the court, if it's a Friday, they may not respond to you until Monday. They may also not send the link until the morning of, but ex parte is one of the few areas where you're not getting that information from some other way or from the website. The court will actually reach out directly to you. So if it's not an emergency, but it's urgent, it's a very similar process, but the motion, instead of being an ex parte order, would be a motion to shorten time or a motion to exceed caps. But that, again, is something that you'd have to give that 24 hours notice for, unless it's agreed. If it's agreed, you can send it via ex parte, and there's a filing fee of $40 to do that online. One last thought I want to leave you with, I know this is kind of dry and technical, get a Links account, get it. Because once you have a Links account, you'll be able to file and serve online. Also, if you're going to be utilizing, say, Tacoma Pro Bono, and you have a Links account and you have an attorney there who's working with you, I volunteer once a month to help Tacoma Pro Bono clients. It's so much easier for that volunteer attorney to help you and assist you in filing documents. But again, you need a Links account That's the Legal Information Exchange Network, I believe is what it stands for. I might be wrong about that, but it's our web-based filing and docket calendaring system. So links, LINX, get that account. I hope this has been helpful to you to understand the current emergency and ex parte procedures, and feel free to utilize that family law facilitator as well as Tacoma Pro Bono if you do qualify for those services. Thank you.